Well, guys, welcome to TFLnow live show. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, folks. We hope a 2022 is better than a 2021.
And I think it will be. And we have a huge thing we're doing because we're kicking off our coverage Chevy Silverado EV week.
That's right. Very soon, I believe on the 5th, we're going to have the official unveiling of the EV. You guys have already heard about it, and there's a lot more going on with it, and Andre is going to be covering a ton of it.
Yes, and we want to hear what your thoughts are, of course, in this chat room. Thank you for joining us. A lot of you already here watching. Brent says hello from Farmington, Minnesota. Hello.
Hey, Brent.
And a lot of you are already wishing us a Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. And also, I want to address this. A lot of you showed concern for us with the recent fires here in Colorado.
Yeah, we recently had a massive fire, a very quick one too. That was devastating for a lot of property.
Yes.
I think well over 1,000 families are displaced, and it was pretty horrific. And it happened pretty close to where we are. The good news is all of our staff, that's including our office, everybody here, managed to get away unhurt and
without property damage.
Without property damage. But Zach, our producer, right down the street from him, there was some serious damage. A lot of
we
our
know
friends,
people who were affected, yeah.
Yeah, we do, quite a few. And so we appreciate all of your good wishes. I mean, it was incredible how many people were reaching out to us via various different types of media. So thank you guys very much for that. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your concern. It was really a horrific freak event.
That was crazy.
It was winds, 100 miles an hour.
And then an hour or two later, then the snow dumps on everything. And it was weird. It's like a war zone that happened a long time ago, even though it just happened. It's crazy.
So, yeah, we have a lot of people here. Trevor from Texas. Hello, Trevor. Dan Atkinson, of course, our old buddy Dan. Happy New Year to all of you. Brad from Indiana. You guys are from all over the place.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so let's
Electric trucks.
Electric trucks. So
yes.
We can't talk too much about the Chevy because, embargo.
Yeah.
But we can talk about these other vehicles, and we are curious to your perspective on what's going on with this new tide of electric pickup trucks.
And also, a lot of you had questions about the GMC electric truck. So let's address that right out of the gate, because GMC, mid-December, they did drop another teaser on us. Mm-hmm. Basically, they showed an image of a grille and the front end of the new upcoming GMC Sierra EV truck. Denali.
Right, but that was it.
Yes.
That was
it. But if you read their press release, which was kind of short, if you read it very carefully, it's very specific. It said the Sierra Denali EV will be their third electric vehicle after the Hummer electric truck and after the SUV electric Hummer. So I looked it up. GMC still says that the electric Hummer EV will be on sale in early 2023. So as such, GMC says it's going to be their third vehicle. So their debut will production debut will probably be later in 2023,
right?
Or maybe a little bit later. So it's not going to be quiet now that they're going to be unveiling their GMC truck, but Chevrolet is first with their pickup truck that's going to be all electric.
That is correct. And what we're curious about is whether or not the GMC will be based on that solely, or will it have something unique about it. Now, as I said, not a lot of details can be thrown out there right now. I'm sure you guys already know as much as many people can let on, but I will say this about that truck and a lot of other ones out there. Right now, we are on the threshold of having Ford with their F-150 Lightning, possibly Tesla with their Cybertruck in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Rivian R1T, Rivian's actually here. GMC does have the Hummer, which is technically a pickup to a certain degree. And then there's some other ones out there that are on the periphery as well.
Yes, totally. So we know what Chevrolet and GMC need to compete against, right?
Mm-hmm.
In even Chevrolet, this new Silverado EV truck, in a way, could be competing against the Hummer. I mean, they're using, and the Rivian is here. Do you see what I did there?
Yeah, he almost went to PAX that you guys can't hear yet.
So we have some details we can share. But the Rivian is kind of throwing down the gauntlet, right? Mm-hmm. Because they delivered about 400 vehicles, maybe a little bit less in 2021. Mm-hmm. We know this because they're now a public company. They're publicly traded. They're reporting their sales. and other information. And we know that the Rivian RYT is a 3-second truck, 0 to 60. We know it will have about 880 approximately horsepower. It has a 314 mile range.
Right.
And the Ford F-150 Lightning is, well, maybe lower on the power side, but still 300-mile range is
With
there.
the big battery.
Yes.
That's correct.
Ford will have 2 battery options.
Right, and then that was only recently announced how big, they should be. And on top of that comes standard the Ford with all-wheel drive. You have the front trunk area, standard pickup truck bed. You guys have been inside of it. You and Roman actually got a chance to mill around inside the Lightning, so you have hands-on experience with it in that respect.
Yeah, and the F-150 Lightning actually, what it does, it's kind of a traditional. It almost looks like a traditional F-150. It's using the same cab. The bed length is identical to the standard F-150. The front end, and the lights are a little bit changed. Of course, the underpinnings are changed.
Completely different underpinnings.
So it'll be very interesting how Chevrolet and GM addresses this as well.
Well, let's talk about Ford a little bit more, because Ford has an actual frame underneath. It's not like a skateboard like you might see in future trucks. This is a regular frame, and then in between the frame they sandwiched in batteries, and then at all 4 corners, independent 4-wheel suspension.
Yes.
Which is pretty unique for a pickup truck.
Yes, and Rivian has a similar setup too. Rivian actually is using 4 motors. So they have inboard motors, not in the hubs. And that's how they get those high power numbers, right? Because they're having 4 motors push you along instead of 2. And of course, their battery sizes will eventually get the maximum pack, which they recently delayed.
Yeah, the max pack I think is delayed at least a year. Am I correct?
Yeah, they were saying mid or early to mid 2023.
Right.
So yeah, all those trucks are there. There are other trucks that we haven't mentioned yet, from smaller startup companies that kind of are delayed again. A lot of them promised to be on the market by 2021, but Bollinger and Atlas and Lordstown, none of them have delivered customer trucks.
Lordstown, to me, out of the 3 of them, is the most realistic in terms of they have a product that they were able to put out there. It didn't do particularly well, but they actually managed to get it on a off-road race to a certain degree, and it performed okay for a little while, then it had issues. Lordstown has had a ton of issues with their internal workings, and they've made some big changes.
They're launching new companies, right? Ford and GM are established companies. They have suppliers, manufacturing,
Right.
A lot of it is set up. Of course, they all need batteries, right? So they're going to be competing against each other on the battery front,
Right.
for sure. And production of batteries.
Well, GM has
and
their
elements.
own thing, their own unique system carved out for batteries, which is their Ultium battery.
And the chassis, yep.
Yeah, and the whole chassis thing. Whereas you have a very different type of setup for Ford and for Stellantis, which we haven't even mentioned yet.
Yes, and Stellantis had their battery day, a few months ago in 2021, and they mentioned, the electric Ram pickup truck. They didn't really specify much. They said it's going to be highly competitive, or state of the art, right? But they mentioned 2024, so
Right.
we're still a couple of years away, potentially, or up to about 2 years away from a Ram electric.
Now, the thing to keep in mind with Stellantis is that now that they have a joint venture with Peugeot PSA, Peugeot actually has a lot of tech underneath their belt when it comes to electrification. So it's possible that between Fiat, Peugeot, and then of course, the American manufacturers all working together through Stellantis, they may actually have something that will be competitive, but by 2024, so we are now talking 2 years off. Will it be something that will compete against this new Chevrolet and the upcoming Ford F-150 Lightning? Who's to say?
Well, it has to, in a way.
It better.
Yeah. Before we move on to Nissan and Toyota, I want to address a couple of questions and comments you guys already have. For example, Joseph had a comment here saying that electric vehicles is really not an answer. He says the fuel cell would be a better option because it still has, you have to mind the mining time for the battery materials, et cetera, et cetera. So this is an interesting concept. The closest, so we know some cars exist already, fuel cell cars. The Toyota Mirai, Honda Clarity fuel cell, there's an issue with infrastructure. Let's set it aside.
Okay.
Right, the fueling of hydrogen vehicles. Let's set it aside because right now, Southern California and the Bay Area is kind of the only locations where that is really useful. But fuel cell vehicles still are using some batteries.
Yep.
Including high voltage batteries, because they need to store that energy.
Right. So when you transfer it over from the hydrogen actually creates the electricity, it actually has to go into a holding cell, so to speak,
like
or a battery. And then it can be fed into the electric motor. It can't go directly into the electric motor.
Well, there's a different way of doing this, but still,
essentially,
it's a highly complicated thing. The great thing about hydrogen fuel cells is the quick of refilling, right? Several minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, you can refill. Although Tommy had some issues with that too.
He did. There's a video out there where Tommy had some real issues trying to fill up at a hydrogen station.
Yeah, but the whole idea is the draw of hydrogen, right? Is that it's a technology where you're using hydrogen fuel to produce electricity. Byproduct is water, and you can quickly fill up and go long distances, right? And that's what pickup trucks need to do, right? They need to go long distances, often carrying lots of weight and trailers. So I would agree, I think both need to exist.
I think plug-in hybrids are the answer. So there, both you guys are wrong. How about that?
Oh, wow.
Well, I think that, can you imagine a plug-in hybrid with a diesel powertrain?
Yes, I can imagine.
How good that would be.
I can imagine.
The fact that trains have been doing that for a long time, not plug-in, but there's a lot to be said about all these different technologies. But one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that there's a government mandate where we need to cut emissions. And in order to do that, electrification is one of those answers. It's not necessarily the only answer, though. So there could be other ways of doing this. So we're not here to argue one point or the other. We just acknowledge that these other things exist, and there's pros and cons for all of them. So
yeah,
the reality. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think the variety of technologies will exist for decades, right? I think heavy-duty segment, I think diesel engines there in the heavy-duty pickup truck segment and semi-truck segment will exist for a long time, even though their companies, even Nikola delivered a fuel cell semi-truck.
Yeah, they did manage to get one.
Port.
Yeah,
right.
So it's at the Los Angeles port, I think, something like that.
So those technologies, but traditional powertrains will not go away because they're so good at replenishing energy, right, and going long distance. So
it's really about logistics and being able to get from point A to point B in the most efficient and quickest manner. And until they can balance that all out with just one particular powertrain, it's going to be a while. So it's not like someone's going to flip a switch and say, well, no more gas car for you, no more pickup for you.
Right, and this relates to the comment from Cam717 who says, didn't General Motors say they're going to go all electric by 2025? No, they said it. They want to do it by 2030.
Correct.
So, but once again, I think what they mean is, that's the way I interpret this, their lineup is going to have electric vehicles in it. They'll probably be selling other vehicles as well.
Yeah, and remember, they may make announcements, but a lot of other automakers have made announcements that they haven't been able to live up to. So keep that in mind. Kind of take this with a little grain of salt. Now,
well, what I mean, like the electric Silverado will coexist maybe with a hybrid one.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like magically everything is all electric. I think they mean all their nameplates will have electric vehicles, right? But I don't know if they can switch flip that switch.
And I think electrification is going to be a big part of it. Ford has already proven that with not one but two different hybrids that are trucks, that it can work with a pickup truck, both a small and a mid-size truck or a full-size truck. So, with that in mind, why not go to the next step and do that across the line? I think that's a possibility. This is future casting, and it's simply picking information up and seeing whether or not it works. But we've been around this business long enough to see where the trend is going, and I think electrification is definitely the direction. Whether or not it's going to be full battery electric vehicles, BEVs, or hybrid electric vehicles, that remains to be seen in some cases.
Well, let's move on to Toyota really quick.
Which is why I mentioned it.
Exactly, because recently, a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, they dropped 15 or 16 new concepts on us.
Yeah.
This was a global event in Japan, and Toyota showed very interesting things, including a pickup truck that looked awfully like a Tacoma.
It looked like a Tacoma with a little bit of Tundra styling to it, and then they slapped on a plastic grille in the front to hide the fact that
covered it, changed the lights.
Yeah,
right.
but it could have. it may have still been a gas vehicle. We don't know. But what the point was is that they really wanted to drill into our heads. Yes, we are thinking about some form of electric pickup truck.
Yes, and they also said they're not promising like all electric. They talked about their Lexus brand eventually reaching all electric status for the entire lineup. But in the Toyota world, they still see a tapestry of different powertrains, right? Be it a BEV, maybe even a fuel cell, and maybe even some plug-ins or hybrids or gas-powered.
Well, I mean, Akio Toyota, and I know I sound funny saying that. I'm trying to say his last name right. He basically said, in more than one case, I'm not a big fan of going all electric. I think the smart way to go is hybridization. And that is exactly what Toyota is kings of. They have been at this for a long time. They build extremely efficient and reliable hybrid vehicles. And they really do have the inside track on that. We expect to see a lot more in the near future. And I think that if they mix it up and they have electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles in their mix altogether, that would probably be the way to go for such a big automaker. And perhaps that's the way of the future.
Yeah, and they have the Tundra hybrid is coming. It's supposed to be here in March or April timeframe, so on sale. I mean, there are some, we were able to drive a pre-production truck already, and we will hopefully do more, but, they're very measured and calculated, but, Ford already has a hybrid on the market. So Toyota needs 2 hybrids on the market.
2.
The Maverick and the F-150.
That's right, and they've proven popular.
Yes, as far as pickup trucks are concerned. Yes, so, and then Nissan also had a kind of an electric vision day.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but they're a little bit more out there. They showed this Nissan pickup concept, Surf Out, I believe. They wanted to go surfing.
Right. Now, what this little truck, and it really was a very small truck, probably about the size of, in between the size of, say, like a Maverick.
And a Frontier, maybe.
And a Frontier, yeah. It was in that zone. It was, well, for one thing, it had a glass front end, so you could actually see into the vehicle, which is definitely a concept idea, because could you imagine people having to stare, basically looking up somebody's pants or other items while they're driving? Not a great idea. But
it's good for visibility. You can see where you're going on the beach.
So you're going to drive like this and kind of like, oh, wait a minute, I know where I'm going. No, that's what the camera's for.
No, I can see where the where the sand is.
I don't want somebody looking at my crotch when I'm driving.
Oh, wow.
That's the bottom line. I don't want that. No, bad, Andre.
Okay.
So the thing about that truck, though, or that little pickup, is that it debuts what may be the shape of things to come. Nissan used to be at the forefront of electric technology, EV technology. They brought out the Leaf years and years ago, over 10 years ago, and that Leaf was huge if you think about what it did to the market, because it proved that you could sell a mass-produced electric vehicle successfully. It really did help start this whole thing. Then they stopped.
And the Aria is not here yet.
Where the hell's the Aria?
Yeah.
So they didn't go any further with it. They could have expanded their fleet. They could have made this a larger vehicle, a different vehicle. They didn't do that. And so this pickup, which is electric, may indicate where they're thinking about going with their upcoming platform that will underpin the Aria and other future vehicles. Maybe. They didn't confirm any of this.
And they're also looking into solid-state battery technologies. And Toyota and other manufacturers obviously are also investing and looking at these technologies. But once again, all of these technologies do need some rare metals, right? So it's not, a magic solution. A magic solution might be like graphene batteries that's like science fiction right now.
Well, they're making strides trying to make it happen.
So there's a lot of research and investment. Even though graphene batteries may exist, but on a large scale, we're not quite there yet.
Right.
So as far as price, per kilowatt hour, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a couple comments here, including from Henry, about the diesel hybrid that we mentioned. Why not do more diesel hybrid, especially for heavy-duty trucks, perhaps? So here's a couple of points on that. At least my perspective is that, so we have turbo diesel heavy-duty trucks right now.
Yes.
You're paying already a premium for that power plant because you have a turbocharged diesel engine, usually a very heavy-duty transmission, which is often outsourced by the manufacturer like Ram and or GM.
Like
to some
Allison,
extent.
some of those.
Allison or Ison or Ford has built in-house transmissions, but it's already like 10 grand or 9 grand or 11 grand in some cases to buy the diesel power plant in your heavy-duty truck. Now, let's say you're adding an electric motor and you're adding a battery, maybe not a big battery, right? A smallish battery to the case. You're adding cost, once again, and then you are also adding weight.
Now, the weight part I agree with you with, but I disagree with everything else.
Oh.
I'll tell you why.
What?
How much more was your powertrain, your hybrid powertrain, over the lesser, whatever it's going up and over, in your Ford F-150? How much of a premium did you pay for that?
Well, so I bought the F-150 Hybrid XL.
Right.
So in my case, it was about 5 grand to buy that hybrid powertrain over the basic V6 that they have.
The basic V6.
The very basic one.
No. I want to go up a little bit. So what about, it would be over the 3.5 liter twin turbocharged
it was like
V6.
$2,000.
Okay.
$2,500.
Now we're getting a little bit more realistic. Now imagine, if you would, a 4-cylinder or even a 6-cylinder, like a straight 6, like the Chevy builds, or 4-cylinder diesel. Remember that when you have a hybrid powertrain, you're actually using a lot of that electricity to move you around. Now, if you were able to do that and maintain a decent charge with that, forcing it to work like a generator, which is exactly what a diesel should be doing, then suddenly you're recouping your costs, at least with weight if it's a smaller displacement engine, and then you're recouping your costs when it comes to fuel mileage, because that thing would get stupid mileage, potentially. So there you go, General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford, you're welcome. Build it.
You just solved the
I solved
entire...
it. You're welcome.
Well, we're going to close our live show.
Yeah, we're done. See ya.
No. I think there's still challenges, especially for heavy-duty trucks, because payload is very important, especially for heavy-duty trucks. So my truck, F-150, it is heavier than any comparable F-150 out there. My truck weighs about 5,700 pounds. It's still quicker than heck.
Yeah, but
it's still efficient.
You're only like 200 pounds over, aren't you?
Yes.
I mean, that's not that's basically me on a diet in the back seat of your truck. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, every pound matters to some extent.
All right. But
I do need a diet.
I've been working on it. So let's talk about some of these questions been coming up. I noticed there's quite a few of them. Zach, do you have anything for us? Nope. Okay. So let's continue.
Well, yeah. Let's talk about. So we mentioned Toyota, Nissan, right? They're obviously working in this space. We mentioned GM, Ram, Stellantis. So Stellantis they don't have enough mid-size trucks.
Oh no, they don't have any.
Well, Jeep. Okay.
Okay, the Jeep Gladiator.
Okay.
I honestly don't. Ever since it came out, I never considered it a competitor so much with the other trucks it goes up against.
Just because it was just a lifestyle,
it's really
more expensive than most.
It's a lot more expensive, and its overall design. There's nothing wrong with it. I like it. I was actually shopping for one at one point, but its overall performance and its overall capability are completely different than most of the trucks it competes against, even in base form. It is really built for eventually being an off-roader. Even if you get one with the basic axles, the basic tires and wheels and all that, you can still build that thing up and it'll absolutely crush it off-road because it's got a heavy-duty frame underneath it. Heavy as hell, long as hell. It's just a very bizarre duck, and it doesn't really fit into the same segment as, say, the Ford Ranger and the Toyota Tacoma and the Nissan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all different in that respect. They're very similar, but that Gladiator's over here.
Well, I agree with you because you can remove your doors or remove your top. It's really, solid axles. It's very unique just by itself.
That's exactly it. And it fills a very different void. I'd like to consider it like a heavy-duty mid-size pickup if there's such a thing. That's kind of where I'd put it. And it does have pretty good capacity. It tows fairly well. It's not great, but it's okay.
Will it be electrified?
Decent. Yes, I think it will. I think you're going to see a 4xe.
At least plug-in.
Well, it's got to be a 4xe.
Yeah.
It makes sense because they've CAFE numbers. What's required by the government is, you got to lower your fuel mileage all across the thing. Blah 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 blah. So yes, I'm sure that Jeep is going to basically take the exact same powertrain they have inside their 4xe, which I think is pretty damn good, and put it inside the Gladiator. It makes total sense.
They should, as long as the one hitch with the Gladiator is payload. You know, towing you mentioned, really, really great numbers, like 7,650 pounds for a lot of those models. But payload is always an issue. Like, we've had the Gladiator with 1,000 pounds of payload.
Which isn't good.
Which isn't good.
Yeah,
I mean, you and I and a large trailer, we're already overloading it.
Yeah.
So as long as they're mindful of that, I think it'll be a really good solution.
Yeah, and they will pay a penalty for the batteries and everything else, but you know, they may have a way around it. I'm pretty sure that right now they're testing, and I'm probably close to production on that.
Yeah, Jason, that was Jason's question, the plug-in Gladiator, basically.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
There's also a couple of questions whether TFL truck or TFL in general is buying the Lightning, or if we're buying several other trucks. Well, so in our fleet right now, we do have the Tundra, the Toyota Tundra TRD off-road. We have a couple of long-term loan trucks, one from Nissan, the Titan, and also the Ram 1500 backcountry. So we have that. We are seriously considering purchasing the F-150 Lightning, because that's obviously a huge deal.
Yeah.
And obviously, these other ones are on our radar too.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
We would nothing would be better than us having the ability to buy these trucks right off and just keep them and do whatever. But we really do have to kind of wait what is most significant. I think that the F-150 Lightning would make an awful lot of sense for us, because really it's one of the first somewhat affordable full-size electric pickup trucks that'll be out there. Yes, the Rivian's out there, and hopefully we'll be getting our hands on one soon. But the Rivian is kind of a different duck. It's more of a lifestyle vehicle, and it sits at a higher segment in terms of just its base price, not to mention how much you can spend on it. Whereas in the Lightning is a little bit more realistically priced.
Yeah, and the Lightning, there is some news coming. There was a leak today, earlier on in the forums, that talked about some pricing. So we'll be doing more on that tomorrow. So we didn't have time to incorporate all of this, all of that stuff.
There's more research that has to be done before we can
into
do that.
this. But they did announce pricing at starting at $39,974. It's a very specific number.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
But that's their basically XL truck for F-150 Lightning. And then some research and other sources, and what we already know, that their pricing for their Platinum Edition F-150 Lightning could reach about $90,000 approximately. Which kind of makes sense.
Right, when you consider the fact that right now you can look at the top of the line F-150s with the Platinum.
They're like 80 grand now.
Yeah,
right.
they're creeping up there in price as well. So keep that in mind. And by the way, I will probably stop including discounts in terms of rebates and all that stuff when it comes to pricing from here on, because the tax brackets just don't always work out for people, and it's not like you're getting cash back in your pocket. It doesn't work that way.
And the laws keep adjusting and changing.
And they will continue to do so, I'm sure.
So that's really hard to know, exactly what kind of tax advantage or you're gaining with a lot of these electric vehicles. There's also a question about from Richard about when will Chevy build a TRX or a Raptor competitor truck. We're going to be addressing it in a few upcoming podcast.
That's correct.
So, but first, for Silverado EV coverage on Wednesday morning at 10:15 a.m. This is Mountain Time. We will have a couple things happening. So we have a TFL truck video coming up with the debut. So we got a lot of information coming at you. We also have a podcast.
He got a chance to go up close and personal with the vehicle. That's all I can say, but keep that in mind.
Sweet. Yeah, and we have a podcast discussing it as well. So TFL Talk, check it out. Obviously, we have both TFL Talk truck podcast, TFL Talking Trucks. We also have TFL Talk, which is a car-based podcast with Roman and Tommy weekly. We have a new show that they did today on our podcast for audio.
There's still more about this Chevy Silverado EV, and that is that he got a chance to talk to an engineer as well, and it's a nice, big, beefy, long video.
And that's coming up a little bit later in the week. Old-timer, you've always supported us through this live show and in many different ways. $2 donation. Thank you,
very
Old-timer.
much. We appreciate that.
He is asking, where's Jeff? I think you mean the bear.
Oh, Jeff the bear?
Yeah, he is around.
Yeah, we can't get up and get him. We're kind of strapped to these with wires.
But his name is actually spelled with a G. Geoff. Yes, he's not a J.
That's because Roman and Andre are European.
Weird. Pepperoni Pete says $5 donation. You guys are the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pepperoni Pete. BTB Dark with a $10 donation with a flying pear. I think that's a flying pear.
That's
oh wait! Oh my God!
Here we go.
The Jeff is here. This is Jeff. So we'll be using Jeff. I mean, not using. I mean, we'll be working with Jeff more in the future.
He's kind of warm. It's a little cold in here, so his fur is a little warm there.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. Thank you, Roman.
And Jeff, he usually helps us out by sitting in seats. Sometimes he shows cargo areas.
He's like a large child in terms of his overall dimensions.
Quite large, I would say.
Quite well. I mean, there's a height and all that. Yeah,
he's not very tall. He's kind of wide, if I may say so.
Which people apparently say about me quite often.
I'm sorry.
So,
but we'll be using him by measuring frunk space or frunk trunks pretty soon.
You're going to see this guy in the front of many electric vehicles in the near future. If they have a frunk, Jeff's going to be there. Spelled with a G.
Yes, and we really hope we have a plan to also review and test a Rivian R1T here in Colorado. That should be coming up very, very soon. And as soon as we get, obviously other trucks, the F-150, the Chevy Silverado, GMC Hummer, all those will be also testing here because we need to do range testing, right?
We do. We need to do range testing. We need to do it under load. It's something that it's been driving me nuts and a lot of you guys nuts too, and that is that there's so many truck companies out there that say, it can tow 11,000 pounds, 10,000 pounds. Right. It's an electric truck. So how did you measure that? And how far did you go to measure it? Where did you measure it? These all matter. All this information matters, and they don't bring it out there. And I wish they'd have a standard where they would have to follow A, B, and C. And once they do that, then they factor out what the average is for mileage. So even if it's only 100 miles that they can tow 10,000 pounds doing mountains and long distance roads and all that other stuff, I would like to know that. And I think that would be fair. And so does Jeff.
Yeah, and we have the perfect way to do this, right? The iGauntlet, World's Toughest Towing Test, but not just the iGauntlet, right? We can do those tests obviously as well. It's a very hard test, but it also tests, the great, I was going to say grade shifting.
But it'd be regenerative braking.
But regen braking
right.
as well, totally, because it should be really, really positive.
It should
be. How does it affect the battery heat, motor heat, et cetera, we need to find out.
Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah, it's going to be a very different type of testing when we take trucks up and over the iGauntlet. But the best part is we don't just have that, we also have a lot of flat, high-speed terrain out here where you can do highways up to 75 miles per hour if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
And Andre loves doing mileage runs. He lives for it.
Yeah, it does take some time, but I do enjoy it, yes. We recently published a loop, I call them loops, but with these electric trucks, these loops may need to go a little bit longer because we want to see how does it behave, when you get closer to zero, how you charge up, closer to 100%, 0%. So we may need to extend some of these loops.
We may need to modify our loop as well because I don't know if
we'll
we'll
run them several times.
Well, we have to make sure a charger is available and all that stuff.
Old Timer, another donation, $2.
Thank you, Old Timer.
Old Timer says, please take the Rivian on the Ike.
Yes.
We completely, will do it if it's here.
Yes.
It should be here.
It should be.
It should be here.
We're hoping it will be there.
But obviously, with the current situations around the world, until it's here, I can't quite say if it's going to be here.
You're absolutely correct. So something to keep in mind, by the way, recently winter finally arrived in Colorado after being absent for 3 months. Snow is here, and it's really here. And there's good news about that because this means that, and we're getting more in the very near future, as these vehicles start arriving, not just electric ones, gas ones as well, we'll be able to test them in the snow. As a matter of fact, we just did a video where Tommy and I believe Roman took our new Tundra into the snow and bashed it in the snow and had some fun. This is actually important science stuff too, because it's not just to measure whether or not a truck is good in the snow, but it's whether or not we can measure if Roman is capable of smiling on camera.
or if he doesn't slip while walking on snow.
That too. Actually, that's the stuff I usually bank on.
But that's a great point. Also, there's somebody here in the chat room also mentioning this point, because temperature, ambient temperature and environment affects range in a big way.
With electric trucks, it does indeed.
And I've actually been driving an electric car recently over the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a lot. It's the BMW i3. It's not a truck, but it's a small car. Excuse me. But what I'm learning is that yes, so temperature does affect batteries, because they have to be preconditioned before you leave to be the most efficient.
Yes.
So it helps to plug in your electric vehicle overnight, even if it's doesn't need to be charged, still helps. But using your heating system inside the vehicle also affects your range.
That's right. It'll drain it as well.
Yes, like any gas-powered vehicle. But in an electric vehicle, it's a little bit more pronounced.
Indeed it is. You should see my daughter has a Nissan Leaf. It's a 2016. And normally her range hovers between 80 and 90 miles, give or take. So the other day, we unplugged it and parked it on the street and just kind of left it there because it was fully charged. Then snow and 6 degrees and all that. And I hopped in it just to take it down the block, and it would drop down to 45 miles. So basically got cut in half. Now, as I was driving, it did increase a little bit. And also bear in mind that Nissan's battery tech with their older vehicles, not so good in the cold. So it's
well, they have to be conditioned, right?
They
Heated or cooled.
Right, but they don't have the element on their own to do so.
Right.
So the point is that it would be very interesting to see how these rugged pickup trucks that are electric perform here in this type of temperature.
Exactly, and we'll be doing a lot more of that. And final statement or comment and question, which is a huge one actually, from a couple of you guys here, is that for electric vehicles, how will the grid support this, right? Because Toyota, even Akio Toyota has been mentioning this. Several other CEOs and people have mentioned this. So first, grid support. Power plants to power all these extra vehicles, and also just the cost of building them. So, yes, it's an issue, but like I said, this is why I don't think it'll be a switch flipped overnight.
No, the infrastructure itself is getting funding throughout the world. Almost every automaker is paying into it, plus there's certain government programs that have recently hatched that are going to expand the power grid and everything else. So it's going to get there. It's already increased quite a bit. And if they follow the lessons learned by Tesla and other organizations, the expansion could be rapid, could be really rapid, which I'm hoping for because...
And obviously it's not going to be, once again, it's going to take time. There's a lot of studies in, some of you guys are already commenting on this, a lot of studies that say, we can't keep building power plants fast enough. Of course, things change. We have also, for example, solar homes, et cetera, where power is made locally at the home, not at the power plant. There's many solutions to this. I just want to mention a donation that just came in. EC to Fix, $20. EC says, you gentlemen do fantastic work. Thank you. And thank you for a huge donation.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. By the way, I have a way of solving the crisis when it comes to power,
for power
in the future.
generation?
Yeah. So what we're going to do is feed Tommy a ton of Red Bull and put him in a massive hamster wheel, have him run, put a little generator there. Everything's fixed. You're welcome.
Or Peloton machines. Stationary bikes.
Have his legs just constantly.
So people, on your stationary bike at home, hook it up to your truck. Yeah. Directly powering your truck as you're sitting there.
I mean, you could do worse, so something to think about. I think it's about time for us to get going.
Yeah.
We all have a long drive home because it is super snowy and icy out there, so we're going to have to split. But I wanted to say thank you guys so much for support, for the time you took out just to watch us. Yeah. We do appreciate it.
And we have not forgot about Ineos Grenadier. There are a couple comments there. They're not available in the US yet, but when they are, hopefully we can get our hands on and be the first to do it.
The minute they contact us and say, here we go, come here and do it, we will go.
Actually, we might get it in Colorado. I've been bugging them about this.
Good man.
So thank you for joining us once again. Thank you for the support. Stay tuned to Silverado EV coverage all this week on all channels, including TFL Talk, TFL Truck, and others. All right.
All right. See you guys.